this will be a tutorial video for the Ontario Provincial Honor Band. We start by asking for scales. First of all, you have your chromatic scale starting on F, your G major scale 2 octaves, your G major arpeggio 2 octaves, and your D major scale and arpeggio in 1 octave. So what's really important about scales in an audition is that you display a lot of confidence in your technique. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be fast, but I believe that you have to show a lot of clarity in your playing. So the way I would practice this is, of course, I would use a metronome to make sure that that my scales are even, that I'm playing in tempo. So for this, for the fingerings, I would use, I would start on the F with the right pinky. I would add 1 in the left pinky here for the F sharp lever. I would lift 2 for the G, add 1 here for the G sharp, lift 2 to get to the A, lift 1 for the A sharp, and then I would use the fork here to go to the A sharp, and then so on and so forth. For the D sharp, you can either use the left lever here with the the left ring finger rather, sorry. So the left ring finger for the D sharp, or you could use the right index finger for the first lever here for the D sharp. It's really up to you. I would recommend practicing it both, just so you can get used to it. The F sharp, obviously going F to F sharp, I would use the side, so it's F and then plus these 2. And then it would be the same later on in the clarion register. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, just like the same with the lower register. Coming down to the break, from G to G flat, I actually prefer to use the regular G flat F sharp fingering. Some people might go from G sharp, some people might like to use the side for the G flat fingering, but it's up to you, and I highly recommend that you practice using both, as you never know in what context they might come in handy. So I will try to demonstrate. Another important thing is that I always support, and for scales, for audition purposes, I would recommend playing it at mezzo forte, healthy mezzo forte, where you could, where it kind of shows confidence and clarity. For this G major, since it's articulated and going over the break, it's really important that I support even more air as I go through the clarion register. So I'll try to demonstrate. And the G major arpeggio. D major could be a nice scale with a little tricky part, and that's going through the break from B natural to C sharp to D. What I like to do is play B natural with only the left pinky here, and then C sharp with the right pinky, because and I would let go as I switch, and the reason for that is if I play C sharp with both fingers down, the tuning would be very sharp, and that wouldn't sound very good. So if I did it by leaving the left pinky on, it would sound something like this. actually that didn't sound too bad, but so that worked for me. But normally I would switch it. And of course the D major arpeggio, which is not any different than any other arpeggio. Make sure you have a very firm supportive air that you always carry through the air. Now we're going to look at the first set of etudes. The first etude is marked andante, and chord note equals 80. And it's a very lyrical etude. It's quite nice, and it has has a few harmony changes here and there. So I believe, in addition to playing with a good sound, good rhythm, steady tempo, and of course paying attention to accents and other articulations, staccato, and what have you, it'd be nice to outline the different musical contours in this etude. For example, from bar 2 to bar 3, you have, it goes from major to kind of a minor feel. So I think it's important to kind of outline the change in the mood, as well as the other things that you look for. Now, some of these bars have intervals that are in arpeggios, so it's important to support through the line. Think of your air going through the notes, and the air must support through every note, between every note and between every line. Another important thing to think about are the dynamics. You start with a healthy forte, dolce, and then you have piano in the 9th bar. So if we pick up to bar 8, you're still in forte, and then you go into piano. And I will try to demonstrate. Now, for Etude B, this is more of a technical etude. However, it's also very important to think about the music, as that will help you learn the piece. If we didn't have it staccato, this etude would probably sound something like this. Of course, we want to keep the same sentiment of that melodic phrase. Now let's take a look at Etude B. This etude asks for a lot of staccato and accents. So what's important about this etude are a number of things. The difference in articulation between accents and staccato, and the dynamics. Of course, you see a lot of these hairpins, so you want to think about those. What's also important is that this is also very lyrical. It might not seem that way from all the articulations, but it is. If you were to play this etude without staccato, it would be quite lyrical. To keep that same sentiment, but with added articulation. So I think the articulation should be slightly light, but when you get to the accents, you should really emphasize those accents. One spot that might be tricky is on bar 16, and that's when we have the accidentals C sharp and D sharp. What I'd like to do is use the right C sharp for the first beat on bar 16, and then we go to E, and then we go to D sharp, and then I use the right finger in here, and then I switch to the left finger in C sharp before we reach bar 17 on the beat. And I will demonstrate starting on bar 15. All of a sudden the music changes, and this little section is no longer in a minor key. It's in a major key, and so that's why there's that hairpin there, and I think it's important to really bring that out. One thing that would help you with the articulation is to think about the air. Of course, what drives the articulation is mainly the air, and not so much the tongue. The tongue becomes secondary. So I would really try to practice it again slurred first, and then I would add the articulation in to get a feeling of how I'm using my air. And then, of course, add the articulation in. And one really important thing is that these accents have a nice decay, almost like a bell. Let's take a look at Etude C. This third etude is quite technical. It's in the key of B flat major, and it has a lot of mixed articulations. So how I look at this etude is that maybe I wouldn't try to see it as a really technical exercise, but more of a musical piece, because it's almost like a dance. It's quite playful, I think, and it requires a lot of good air support. So always think about supporting through. One thing that helps me achieve a sense of the lightness and the bounce that I would like for this etude is to clip the slurs. So what do I mean by that? That means I would place a staccato marking on the second 16th note of every slur. So for example, so I keep it light and rhythmic that way. Now, another important thing to think about are these accents. You want to have a slightly different character than you do, for example, in bar 7 than you do in bar 1. Versus bar 1. And it's really important that you work with a metronome for the whole piece. But what's really important to think about are the rests. We have to respect the rests in bar 8 and bar 10, as they don't start on the downbeat. They start on offbeats. So from bar 7. And so on. Of course, this etude ends with a fortissimo, so make sure to make that distinction between that bar and the rest of it, the rest of the etude.